Hi, I'd like to call this meeting to order. The Londonderry Planning Board, September 14th meeting. Art Rugg is in Russia tonight, or on his way to Russia tonight, so the chair position falls upon me for you all. Anyway, there are exits in the back of the room. If there's an emergency, please exit peacefully and carefully and wait for emergency personnel to come and tell us it's okay to come back into the building. And if we could please stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the planning board meeting is divided into two sections. Administrative board work is the first section, and then the second meeting of the month is for continued plans. So tonight we have a couple of things under administrative board work. Andre?
Yes. First, if you can, Ms. Chairman, if you can let people know that the Varani subdivision off of Page Road has requested a continuance to the October 12th meeting.
Okay, well, they've requested it. We haven't granted it,
That's right. That's request. I just want to put it.
So, I don't imagine there's going to be a problem, but.
No.
So, do we want to take that first, or do we want to? Shall we just do that first? In case there's somebody out here waiting for it. So, there's a letter in the file here. So
do we need to make a motion to
we do.
move the meeting? Madam Chairman, Vice Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the plans for the Tammy M. Varani 2004 Revocable Trust, map 17, lot 34, public hearing until the October 12th, 2011 Planning Board meeting.
Okay. Motion made by. I'm not good at this at all. We need
Lynn. Motion made by Lynn.
I know Lynn, but second by Dana. Any discussion by the board? All right, then all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative. And is there somebody? I mean, Art's missing, so I should appoint somebody to vote for him, shouldn't I?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so.
Who's the most senior alternate?
Scott is the most, yes, senior member, so Scott, you may vote for Art. And John is an ex officio, so you don't get somebody to vote for him, right?
Right.
Correct.
Right, okay. So that's an effect for this last vote, okay? All right, so that's taken care of. So now we have administrative board work.
Yes, next item is the 124-126 Rockingham Road gas station convenience store site plan has requested of the board if that they are making their way towards meeting the conditions of approval. And the letter that you see before you outlines those conditions. They feel that they will be able to satisfy those conditions between this meeting and our October 5th meeting, and wanted to request if the board would be amendable to coming in and on a special meeting just to sign the plan.
We have done that before, so I don't think we have a problem doing that. Do you have a problem?
No, I don't have a problem. I thought I saw on the television that there was a third meeting scheduled this month for the planning board. Our meetings are scheduled for all 4 nights, all 4 Wednesdays, but we just don't utilize them because we don't have the stuff.
Yeah, that was actually the 9th time that has been brought to our attention. Usually it should just, for the planning board meetings, it should be just the first and second Wednesday of each month. Actually, the 28th is our master plan meeting.
Is that what it was?
But we'll make sure that gets cleared up on the.
So the 9th time it's been brought to your attention, huh?
About the 9th time, yes. We're well aware of the fact that there is an extra meeting on there.
Okay, so you don't need a motion, and you just need a consensus, right?
If we get a consensus that the board's willing to do that, then I will pass that along to the applicant.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Fine.
And discussions with town staff?
Yes, we have an item here, and let me just bring that up. There's a plan that's been submitted for design review. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. There's been a request from Patricia Verani, and I will read that, Madam Chairman, if you like, I can read that into the record, what the request is, and then I can pull up the plan thereafter. This is regarding tax map 15, lot 22-1, 217 Rockingham Road, Londonderry. On behalf of Patricia L. Verani Revocable Trust, please review the attached plan and determine if a full site plan review is required for this permanent change of use for the above referenced parcel. I'm going to mess this up, but Mr. Vasilios Palaskas would like to open a pizza sub shop, which is an allowed use in the C2 zone. The pizza business will be primarily takeout for 20 seats for dining in purposes. Previously, the board allowed a barber shop to occupy the remaining of the building. Based on 20 seats and 4 employees, the requiring parking for the pizza shop is 9 spaces. The barber shop will require 8 spaces for 4 chairs being provided. Total required parking is 17, where 18 parking spaces exist. No site improvements are required for the conversion on the structure to the pizza sub-business. And I will pull up the site plan for that.
Andre, isn't this the parcel that is a temporary change of use that we've allowed with the barber shop in there? And
Correct.
then there was also the limousines? And, I mean, when we've been talking about this previously, haven't we always used the word temporary, and now we have the word permanent in this? So
Yes. And I think the reason why you'll see the word permanent in there is this, though, they don't have to come back annually to the planning board to reaffirm that they still have those uses that were allowed in the past. Now they're dedicating the uses for the facility to the barber shop and the pizza parlor, in which they have enough parking for them. And the assumption is that the limousine shop will no longer be there. There'll just be 2 uses. And I'm looking in the audience because John Weigler is here representing the applicant. And so there will just be 2 permanent uses, which is allowed in the district, is able to be accommodated on the site because there's ample enough parking. The plan that's before you is consistent with the plan that was in the building that was approved back in the 80s, I believe. 90s. So we're just bringing this back to the board for this use, consistent with the past practice on this site, to see if the board would be amenable to seeing to the fact that since there's no change in use, no change to the site for the uses proposed, whether a full site plan is going to be warranted.
Staff has had discussions with the applicant, and again, there would be 2 things that they would have to definitely look at, though, is again, getting a hold of DOT because of their curb cut, their westerly curb cut's gonna be impacted by the improvements that's underway at Londonderry Freezer Warehouse. And so, again, it would be a matter of contacting DOT for amending their driveway permit and concern about the sewer connection into the sanitary sewer because of it converting into a restaurant out there. So we've had that, I've had that discussion with George.
Hey, would the board like to see any presentation, or do you have any questions?
A question, how does the current use of a property like that get recorded? Is it on the deed, or is it just recorded on town records?
It is recorded on town records. On site plans are not recorded in the registry of deeds. They're just, obviously, if it's approved by the board, they're held in our office in the planning files. And the uses as designated would be the uses that they could move forward. If there's any change of use, obviously, they'll come back before the board.
No, I asked the question because of the limo business that's there as well. I mean, it's going away, I take it, but, you know, would there be some record saying that as of a certain day, the business occupying this particular property, or is the barber shop and the pizza shop?
Yes, if the board is amenable to allowing this plan to move forward, then the permanent change would be that the barber shop and the pizza parlor would be the uses for this. Anything other than that would be in violation of the approval.
Okay.
The problem being, Lynn, is this 1990s plan, there was actually a note. It says change of site use will require a new site plan review. So that's where we've always, and this was approved for the museum, the Children's
Right.
Museum, to recall it.
Was the use, when it was the cafe, was that through an approval, a temporary approval? That was a small restaurant at one point, after the Children's Museum.
Antiquities?
Yeah. Tea room, yeah.
The tea room,
Yeah,
I would think that that came back before the board for, to see if that would be an amenable use for the site, given that it goes from our museum to a restaurant. And the number of seats that would require for both uses would
So
be
that was a-
compatible.
Was that a temporary use at that time as
Yeah.
well? So they had to keep on coming back each year?
Keep on coming back
Okay.
each time, yeah.
So what does that note mean to us? Is it something we don't see that note today on site plans,
Well,
right?
usually we don't, because it's either approved for retail. So again, if it's 1,000 square feet of retail,
Yeah.
you need 8 parking spaces, and so if it's a convenience store type retail versus, or a bookshop, right? That's a change in use.
Right.
But it wouldn't require them coming back here.
So if that note wasn't there, would we be having this discussion right now?
Probably not.
What's involved in taking the note off? I mean, we'd have to have a
Well,
site plan review to take
This,
the note off.
this plan was to plant that one. If the board, actually, it would be a recommendation that, this plan would be the plan where we move forward with, showing the parking, obviously with the appropriate notes that NHDOT has taken a look at it, and if it requires a sewer discharge permit, then that will be noted on the plan, but also in the purpose section, it'll be noted that this will be a service/restaurant, pizza parlor.
So rather than a full site plan review, you would do this administratively?
Correct.
Since we've already been through this with the barber shop, and that is set up to come back before the board every year, is this change gonna apply to that also, or do we have to redo it for the barber shop also?
No, if the board allows us to move forward, again, the 2 uses would be the barber shop and there'd be the pizza parlor. And that will be noted on the plan. And if there's any subsequent change to this plan, that is, like if the pizza place moves out and another pizza place moves in, there's no really change in use. I'm sure that the building inspector would take a look at that and say, well, it's a comparable use consistent with the approval of the plan, therefore we'll allow the use to move forward. But because that note is on this plan that's coming back, if this plan supplants that one, then the uses in the purpose section of that site plan will govern.
Another question, are there gonna be new plans drawn up? Because this plan does not show the current parking.
It does.
It shows it along one side, it does not show it along the front of the building.
Cap up front.
Yeah, there's 2 handicap up front here, and then the remainder are, let me pan out a little bit so you can see the whole site. And you have the parking along here, along this section here, and then you have the 2 parking spaces up front here.
Right, but if you come in on the curb cut, there's striped parking all along the front right now.
Oh, you mean right here?
Yes.
Yeah, the parallel
Well,
parking.
no, through the curb portion.
Front's over here, though.
Oh, right here?
Yeah, right,
That's the front. Yeah.
right here.
Well, what we're looking at, Dana, this plan was something that was produced by Hancock Associates, so, I guess they'd have to verify that there is no parking there, or whatever.
Well, no, there currently is.
No.
I was just
Well,
over there.
well,
Got
if
my
you-
hair cut. Believe me, there's parking there. It's striped.
So obviously, whatever's this plan is showing is what should be out in the site, because they're saying that there's 18 parking spaces, and there's 18 parking spaces shown there. If there's more, then, and those parking spaces will need to meet our requirements. The one that are shown meets our requirements. So what's shown needs to be in place out there.
Yeah, because there's pull-in parking spaces right in the front of it. Like I say, I was just over there. And that's where I parked, right there.
So
Anybody
can we
else?
just decide that they can handle this administratively? It's not gonna,
Well, I think there's a bigger question, though, isn't there? I mean, yes, you can handle it, we could decide that you could handle it administratively, but there's a note on that old plan that says that if there's a change of use, they have to come in for a new site plan. So you would want us to either accept the new plan in place of that plan so that that note goes away,
Correct.
and then allow them to handle it administratively. So I think there's two questions that we have to deal with. You know, for the past 2 years or 3 years, we've been hearing, this is coming in temporarily, this is coming in temporarily, and I appreciate that, you know, the nature of retail is that way. Is there a way to designate it as retail or commercial or whatever? C2 is what,
Right now, is C2, right now, the use is being proposed, or the purpose of this particular plan is for a barber shop or service and a restaurant.
Right, but to prevent them from having to come back every
Yeah.
time there's a change. I mean, I think that's what we're talking about. Is
Right.
there a way to
And if
remove
this,
that note? You know, still make sure it's used according to the regulations, but remove the note so they're not forced to come back here every time a different tenant moves in.
And even if there's a note on the plan, there may be a use that, you know, is a gray area use that might still come back to the board. Most
have a
of,
problem with that.
but if it's a C2 oriented use, then it's the building inspector will take a look at that and make the decision from that point on.
when it was Antiquities, there was a restaurant there, and they were talking about putting, you know, a restaurant back in. I don't have any problem with letting this plan take the place of the old one and letting you handle it administratively. Just my-
Yeah, and I agree with that too. It's just I'm trying to make it,
Yeah.
if it makes sense to make it easier down the road, that's what I'm trying to do, is just make it easier.
We've had that discussion with the applicant.
Okay.
and the only concern I have is setting a precedent. Are we setting a precedent that we would be hit with in the future and we don't want to be hit with in the future?
For this particular plan, no. I mean, you have a site that can accommodate, it's a C2 zone site with a C2 uses being proposed and existing building that, and an existing site that can accommodate it. Therefore, if we have a like situation in the future with another site, then we can make, arguably make the same decision.
Okay. Is there anything else from the board? Then would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
I change sexes? Never mind.
Madam Chairman, excuse me.
And could that be subject to, obviously, the DOT
Right,
and
subject
the
to
sewer
the-
discharge permit?
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes affirmative. I'm Dana and Lynn.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so now we have discussions with town staff.
Yes.
I have nothing this evening. Tandra has.
Welcome back.
No, we have one other item too, right?
Is it town entitlement thing?
This is the issue. That's the next one. Actually, I got to apologize to Mr. Giuseppe on the agenda. I spelled his name wrong. It should be Diguiseppe. But this is an issue. There's been a plan submitted for design review for a lot off of Vista Ridge Drive. That's that inner lot across from the Vista Ridge apartments. There's a proposal there. I believe the board saw this conceptually, is for a retail establishment there.
It's not the McDonald's lot, right?
Not the
No, it's
McDonald's
the
lot.
one above
it.
McDonald's abuts the site, but it's not the McDonald's lot. It's the bigger site. And through the review process, there have been several issues that have come up that, quite frankly, I think we ran up against as far as the staff could go with those particular uses. Particular requests. So now they're here before the board for some direction. This is not a public hearing. This is under staff discussion to get some direction so we can obviously assist the applicant through the process. And the first item is in regard to traffic improvement. I should say there are 5 items in total that is going to be discussed before you tonight. I believe two of the, or three of the five, I believe that we can make some headway with the applicant with regard to, but we'll go over them just the same, but I think three of the five that I think we can come to an agreement as to how we can handle those issues with regard to slopes and so on and so forth. But the one issue, one of the issues that, you know, we have a difference of opinion with regard to how we proceed, and that was with traffic improvements. And I'll read the applicant's concern. The vast majority of towns in New Hampshire, the applicant submits a 25% concept plan for planning board approval. Once approved by the planning board, the applicant completes the DOT 100% plans, and DOT maintains the jurisdiction approval over the design process. We offered the town 50% drawings prior to planning board hearing, with the understanding work would not commence until we received DOT written approval. The difference between 50 and 100% plans are not material to the integrity of the design. The request, the town should review and approve 50% plans. Once acceptable, and make a recommendation to planning board to approve. And historically in Londonderry, when we look at site plans or even subdivision plan that has off-site improvements, in the instance where those approvals require approvals to the state highway as well as local highway, there's been a two-prong approach. For the state highway improvements, if DOT, along with consent from the planning board, obviously, if the design is something that we both, the town and state, agree upon based on the proposal before us, and that plan is at a 50% design level, but we have an approval from the state that says, yes, if they move forward with this proposal, or this improvement as proposed, then we generally accepted that. We have done so with Hannaford Brothers and the Home Depot on the state section of the road. We have something in there that says conceptually, yes, they can move forward with that design. For local roads, we require more than that. We require 100% design. We want to, when we bring an application before this board with regard to improvements to town roads, we want assurance that obviously that improvements will work and that we can present to you, the planning board, that the design is of a nature of a degree that we are assured that it will work based on the recommendation from staff and our reviewing consultant. And so this is where we're at a differing of opinion as to the level of work on the concept of the offsite improvements that the board will require.
So do you want us to discuss that first?
Yes,
or
and I don't know if I'm sorry, Janusz.
If I can add something too, you know, again, the proposal does identify there's going to be impacts to the traffic out there. And again, staff feels, again, without the 100% plans, we can't demonstrate that the impacts would be mitigated. Again, with the confines of the right-of-way and what land is actually out there, there's actually improvements that indicate that, you know, some of the improvements will be constructed on the developer's property. So, again, we're concerned again with the impacts to the traveling public, the residents of the town, the abutters, and that's why we've always looked at 100% off-site improvement plans for town roads. That's all I have for now.
Can we just go to Janos first and then?
Through not only the past history, but in our regulations, we require that off-site improvement shall be shown on the plan in 100%. When it came to the state improvements on a state roads, when we require a state permit, applicant sometimes was waiting for a state permit to have a final design. Mm-hmm. And instead of the permit, we were satisfied with a letter from the state that all the improvements are approved by the state and that permit will be granted. So at that moment, board was accepting that kind of letter instead of the permit. For off-site improvement on our roads, I think is essential that we will have those improvements shown. It worked so far for 20 years here in town of Londonderry. As John mentioned many times, conceptual plans do not show if those improvements can be finally designed that way or even constructed. There could be unnecessary easements, there could be conflicts with the existing utilities, if the source cross-sections are not shown, if those cut lines are not shown, in the profiles, geometry, so where do you stop? And what is 25% on the plan? 75, 50, a subjective number. It's something that we will later on have to argue, oh no, this is 50%, 50% of what? 50% of center design, but the essential that we believe is not, and important stuff is not shown. So I would strongly recommend to stick to our regulations that those improvements are shown, especially that these are the improvements who are so important to us as a town, because what we are stuck later on those roads when the improvements are not done, then stuff falls on our shoulders. So.
Tom? Just a second.
First of all, can you waive the regulation that requires 100%, or is that just mandatory?
Anything in the site plan regulation is something that the board has the opportunity to take a look at and waive.
Okay. Now,
When board, for example, when you set the conditions, because during the last review and the last hearing, there will be some outstanding issue, but it will be a small issue that we know that if there is a very little that we can recommend to the board, yes, we can handle this administratively. At the beginning, where we still have even the questions if the traffic study is done correctly and the concept design is based on that study, that is way too early to even think about conditional approval. And I think a lot of times board might grant consensus looking at that if it's already design concept is acceptable to the staff, to the board, and to the state, it might give a consensus that yes, we will not come up with another third lane or have another questions if you finalize design. But to give approval, I don't think, it never happened before in Londonderry, and I would not recommend to go in that direction. There will be a pretty bad precedent setting up on a conceptual offsite improvement.
So we've never done it before, right?
No, we did not approve conceptual offsite improvement to any site plan. We allowed to have a letter from the state instead of a permit from the state, because all the permits are required before signing the plans. So they said we don't have, they are still finalizing the design, but you see, state will be the one who would be inspecting the road and looking at the improvements on the particular, like was on 102 from Home Depot.
And Tom, they're looking at they're looking at 28. They're not looking at Vista
Right.
Ridge. That's our driveway, so it's K-Town if you
So
want
this
to back up.
discussions around the slope, just for clarification, we're talking about off-site, but it's really the impact on the off-site by the slope that they want on their property.
Not only no, we are,
Up
for
to Vista
example,
Ridge.
Vista Ridge being widened, the additional lanes, turning lanes are being put, different curb cuts are being placed, and so on. So all the improvements off-site of the site plan itself, which are being proposed on our road. So we always wanted those improvements to show 100%. Plans sometimes were conditionally approved if they were 99.9 because there were a few outstanding issues at the last meeting.
But unless you know what the full parameters of 100% are, how are you going to know what 25% of it is? Unless you're just
Exactly.
taking it on faith from the person saying this is 25% of all I'm doing.
Because we don't know, for example, if the additional radius has to be placed. Right now, I know that will be additional radius needed because truck cannot turn and it will encroach on another lane. So now, can they achieve to get the easement? What about moving mass posts? What about moving utilities? There could be, manhole, 15 by 15 telephone manhole that is in conflict with the drainage that's designed. So there's a lot of issues that could happen from conceptual to the final design. And yes, it is additional cost for the developer to come from conceptual to final, and we fully understand this, but to protect the town interest and to make sure that design is done correctly, I think that's what should be done.
Okay. Andre, did you
I
have
just want to
something?
say, I know that Mr. De Giuseppe wanted to say a few words with regard to the board will allow that.
Sure.
I have one question before we go there, too. It gets back to the 25%, 50%, 100%. What is 50%? I don't know what 50% is.
And
You know-
that's why, to me, I would not discuss percentages like that, because if we will now have to create a new regulations in town and say we'll have to come up with another checklist, what should be in that 25%? the profile, the cross sections, and all this information that is essential to know that the plan can be implemented and then later on constructed. And we had examples in the past when plans were, I remember when permit, like on La Montagne, on Mill Pond. That's why we switched that. The permits have to be in place because the Army Corps refused to construct the bridge in the location that they designed, and everything had to be scrapped.
Right.
What's the rush? Is it to get construction started before the winter sets in, or is it just to get construction started, period, because that's going to save them money in the long run?
I think that the developer probably will, make a point of what he was telling us, a cost. That right now he will have to have some assurance that there is no, that this design will be accepted, that he can proceed and spend more money on engineering to continue with the design, and then probably go to, with this conceptual to the banks, whatever, to get, I have approval. But you can't have approval on conceptual design. And consensus, yes, the board would say, well, we kind of see if this will work. We will not require that you'll be with 4 lanes if the traffic works and everything else, but we never had conditional approval on such a huge condition.
Anybody else on the board before we go to public?
Thank you. My name is Mike DiGiuseppe. I'm the developer of the property. And first of all, I want to thank Andre and John and their staff. They've been really responsive to us. This project is important to us also, but I think it's also important for the town. The town rezoned this property as a conditional use last year, and at that time we started the process. We intended to have this before the planning board, and we were on the agenda originally at the end of August. And in order to get ready for that meeting at the end of August, we had to go through the Heritage Committee, which Arthur Rugg sits on, and they approved our design. We had to go to Concom, and we had to go through a series of design review process with the town planning board when Tim Thompson was available. And we went through all that process. We only found out about this traffic issue at the late hour, so we had to withdraw our application, which you saw in your meetings in the last couple of months. Some of the things that were said tonight are not exactly accurate, and I want to explain those to you. We've been in business for 30 years building retail centers in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Typical of most developments, and I know the conditional use regulation was rewritten to be a little more developer friendly, at least we were told that by Tim, but in most townships, and we have a list of the towns that do accept this, they usually accept 25% plans. Now, people have asked, what is 25, what's 50, what's 75? 25% plans are a standard. It's a standard with DOT, state regulation. You provide plans that satisfy a certain standard at 25%, so that DOT and others could look at it and say, in concept, this satisfies what you're trying to get accomplished out there. And different than what was said earlier, DOT has jurisdiction 150 to 175 feet off the intersection. So when there was references as to turning lanes and signalization, that comes under DOT domain. DOT has already blessed our plans. The only section that's part of the town is that additional 175 feet in, which starts, if you look at the plans behind you, starts at there's a proposed bank property. So it starts somewhere in front of that bank and goes through the intersection on main entrance, and the balance of the area is striping. It's not an island, it's a striped island.
So Mike, you're saying that the jurisdiction of the town starts right around here?
That's correct, that's correct. So you're talking about maybe 100 to, I'm sorry, more like 200 feet of town road. But in that 200 feet of town road, all we're doing is creating an entrance, a turning lane. There's no signal there. It has to satisfy 67 turning radiuses, which it does. And so the town's review of that section is very minimal. It doesn't involve slopes. It doesn't involve, all it involves is the construction of that section of the road. Now, the difference between 25% plans and 100% plans, Mr. Willis asked that question, it's all construction details. When our engineer, who's Van-Ness Associates, who's done work in this town in the past, does a traffic study, the traffic study is based on the design concept. So we present a concept, The town and your consultant, Stantec, says, in concept, this plan works. We submit it to DOT, their section. DOT says, in concept, this works, and the backup information that VAI puts together is the traffic study. And the traffic study talks about how many cars go in and out. It talks about turning radiuses. It talks about signalization modification, if a pole has to be relocated. It talks about all those things. So the concept is determined during that 25% plan review period. All I am asking the board to do, and I don't think it's something you can't provide, is that we've already completed all our site plan approval, which includes landscaping, drainage, da-da-da-da-da-da. The only thing that it doesn't include is the requirement that you have for 100% plans on your section, again, that 200 feet of section, that doesn't involve signalization or anything else. You require 100% of those plans complete. That's why our project stalled. That's why we're not going in the ground this year, because we had to withdraw our application because we can't satisfy that section of the requirement. So our project's not starting. If anybody thought that it was, it's only not starting because you're requiring 100% plans of your 200 feet of section. It doesn't involve very much improvements, but the regulation says that. So what I'm asking the board to do, and I want to back up for 1 second. We were asked by Andre to provide 20 towns who do not require 100% plans. And I'm going to hand that out to you if I could. If you could just pass that around. We only gave them 20 towns. There are hundreds of towns in New Hampshire that don't require 100% plans. The only other town in New Hampshire we found besides Londonderry is Derry. And that's the only 2 townships that require 100% plans. We asked Andre to certify it. I think he's called a couple of people. So what the town is asking us to do is the difference between, and it is a cost hardship, and I want you to think of it this way. When we went to the Heritage Committee, we received approval of a concept, a design concept. Then they told us to come to the planning board, and that design concept is incorporated into our building permit. This is very similar. We provide a concept, we provide backup studies, 25% plans. We obtain DOT approval of the design concept based on the report. We received approval of the design concept from your independent consultant, Stantec. And then all I'm asking this board to do, so we could take it to the next level, is to give us conditional approval of the design concept. I'm not asking you to sign the plans. I know you're not going to sign the plans until which time we have 100% plans. But to ask me to spend the difference between $25,000 and $100,000 for a 200-foot section that doesn't require a lot of work is a bit of a hardship, and I don't think it's reasonable, especially because we're not starting this project till the spring.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
You submitted this August 23rd memorandum to the town.
I did.
On behalf of, Londonderry Land Development LLC?
I'm the managing partner. Yes.
Okay. And the request says, your request says, town shall review and approve 50% plans, and once acceptable, make a recommendation to planning to approve. Planning shall sign plans based on 50% approval. Now, you just said you weren't asking us to sign the plans.
Some things have changed since that letter was sent out. It is a month old, and there's been discussions. Again, the town has been great about sitting down with me and talking about it. So that should have been corrected. The 50% should have been changed to 25%, which is the standard. That's my mistake. And I'm changed my position on asking you to sign the plans. I understand that Andre and John made it very clear to me that the planning board won't sign our plans. But if I submit my application based on the 25% plans that have been approved in concept, with the backup information, what's called a TIAS, which is a traffic study, that supports the design concept, and it's done by engineers that certify it, it's done by DOT who certifies it, and it's done by your consultant who certifies that design concept, turning lanes, access, curbing, signalization, all the things that are part of the road improvements. The board, in my opinion, as a lot of towns have done in Massachusetts and also in a lot of towns, most of them in New Hampshire too, a lot of towns accept that at the planning level as being reasonable and approved. the plans based on that 25% plans. The planning board has an extra bite of the apple, because when we come back to you with 100% plans, that's when you sign the plans. But I'm not going to go ahead and authorize anybody to spend the kind of money they're asking me to spend at this early stage of the game. It's just a hardship that you shouldn't be opposing on a developer, and it's not required. So I'm not asking for a decision tonight. I'm not asking for a vote unless you want to provide a vote. But I wanted to discuss this with the planning board, because the conditional use, we're the first big project to come under the conditional use. It's reasonable to assume that there are some things that need to be modified in order to make it work. It's the first big project come before the town in a long time. We have financing for this project, we're ready to go, but we can't proceed without a certain level of approval from the town.
Okay, so just so I understand,
Yes, sir.
you're basically at a point where, do I make an investment in this town or do I walk away, essentially? So if the planning board was not going to sign these plans, but at 25% say, we think this is a good project, you'd make the investment decision to go forward and get whatever you need to do to get to 50% plans. The engineering cost, you'd incur that. And
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I'm asking for a 25% conceptual approval, giving us the green light to say, let's go to the 100% plan. Because this is such a small section of road. I mean, we do a lot of bigger projects. This is small. And I can't do 100% of 200 feet and do 25% of another feet that's DOT. It all has to be designed as one. So once you say, yay, this works in concept, then I authorize design for the whole, 100% for the whole section. Because, that requires some time for approval.
Dana?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Andre, but when we did Home Depot, we conditionally approved those plans with a condition that they bring back plans and everything for the Opticon gate and any improvements on Gilcrest.
Correct.
Why can't we do the same thing here?
It wasn't a condition for.
Can you get to a microphone, please? Thank you.
No, it was approved, Gilchrist, all the improvements were shown. The only condition was that instead of providing a permits for 102, we had a letter that state accepts the design. And there's before probably go a little bit further with discussion, there's several things were said here by Michael that I strongly disagree. First, I would love if the state will have jurisdiction of 200 feet or 175 feet of our roads, because I could cut our budget for plowing, maintaining, and everything else. It doesn't happen here in the state of New Hampshire. We are responsible for the road all the way to the edge of pavement or to the right-of-way with the state. Now, not only that, any approval from a state, we only saw two memos, internal memos in the state, which both memos, one was from the traffic bureau, stated that they agree with the volume calculations, which is basically saying, yes, you're going to have a restaurant, you're going to have whatever you have over there, the volumes you were using for traffic study are correct. Then from perimeter design, they had a memo that they will have to review the plans. There was no approvals whatsoever, and they had also questioned what we had. We had 12 serious comments for traffic study that they did not take in calculations. I think the bank was added in the last minute to the design. It was not incorporated in a traffic calculations. So that concept was not necessarily designed based on the correct traffic study. It's 12 comments, so we can go every single one over, but it's not like it was under. You might be under the impression that everybody approved, and there's only 200 feet of road in dispute. We have several pages of comments to the design from our review that we never got the response to it, how it will be corrected. The only thing was this kind of dispute regarding how we're going to treat the off-site improvements. Not only that, we will sit down with the state. There was no yet one project done in this town that I would not sit down, or Andre will not sit down, or staff with the state and agree on a proposed design on a state road. State will not approve against the town's concerns on any. So if we have a concern that another lane is missing, the stocking, and there's a problem, even on state road, we will discuss with the state. We didn't even get to that stage yet. So this was, the project is not, if the Heritage Commission had some comments over there, but we have other comments from the DRC review, from our review. So I think we are in the process of starting the review. The project is not approved with the exception of 200 feet. And especially this conceptual design, based even on a traffic that should be modified, we immediately have concerns about the lanes design on our Vista Road, on our road.
Well, let me ask you, what's the downside of doing what he wants to do if we're not signing off on the plans?
Setting up a precedent of improving on off-site improvements that might not be able to be constructed. Additional easements might be needed. How we will define or developer will define the cost of the project, not knowing what will have to be done. For example, this road is designed that now part of the road is going to private property. It's not a right-of-way. It's right-of-way goes right through the pavement or curbing. So that would have to be adjusted in a subdivision plan.
But isn't that his problem?
How does it become
That's why
our
we
problem?
have hearings, and that's why we have.
No, but if he
submittals of
can't
plans.
get his easements, if he can't do all that stuff, he just doesn't go forward.
It's his risk at that point.
Yeah, first of all, to address it, we stopped a month ago. So that's why you don't have the information you're asking for. We knew that going into that this is where we were. There was a roadblock. So we stopped providing comments to your 10 comments. I stopped that whole operation. And we haven't submitted 25% plans yet. Those are scheduled to happen at the end of September. And with respect to the concern regarding easements, please understand that I control both sides of the street. So if I need to create an easement for a turning lane on the left side of that plan, I control that property. I can provide.
Are you on a deed of both sides?
I have control. I've controlled the property, so I can extend the easements because I have the control of the development. It's the same scenario I have on the other parcel, so I can grant that to myself.
But my question really, I don't really care if you have control or not. I guess I'm looking to protect the town. You want to advance something. You want to know if you can go forward and make money on the deal. You know, and you want, before you do that, before you put money in, you want to know I imagine what the sense of the board is on this thing. So that's why you're proposing this 25% plan. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I guess my question is, so that the Londonderry regs don't become how does that phrase go? The perfect being the enemy of the good. You know, my question is this: if he gives the 25 plans and he can't do what he wants to do because he needs some condition to be met, how is the town harmed?
Can I just address part of that at least? It really comes back to the board. I mean, I think we worked over the last decade, last decade in order to get our regulations to a point where hopefully it can get people from point A to point B. And but in the middle of between point A and point B is the detail that at least we need so we can present to you a plan that we think will work. If we leave those things out, we say, you know what, we'll have 25% plans, and you ask us, well, based on this traffic study, does that design work? We say, well, we haven't got that information. We only got 25% of it. And I said, so it may, and to your point, you said, that's a risk the developer's got to make, is that once he presents the remainder of it, we find that to implement this plan, it's going to require a piece of that corner property or something else.
And if that occurs,
yeah.
And if that occurs, and your judgment is this won't work, and then the board says, okay, it doesn't work, we're going to say no.
Yeah.
Can we say no and we're not bound to
Well, yeah, and then if you say no, you make a determination that, you know, without the data to verify that it works, you say, well, it's premature and scattered, you deny it.
Okay, but.
And, or on the other hand, or the way we have been doing this is that, you know, the plans are to a degree that we can give you with our full faith and effort to say that, yeah, this will work. We have all the information. Yeah, the turning lanes will work, the queuing will work, the traffic statement that's been submitted, and the improvements based on that traffic statement will work. And right now, at 25%, I don't think we'll have enough information to make that decision.
Okay.
Or recommendation, I should say.
I'm getting hung up on what are we actually being asked to approve tonight?
Well, actually,
Is
you're
it
not
a
asked to approve anything. This is more direction. Would the board accept 25% plans?
For what?
For this plan here,
For
for
a
the offsite
conceptual
improvement.
design,
It's just
or
for
is
the
it for
offsite
a full
improvements,
site
it's not the
plan?
plan itself, it's just the
A
offsite.
conditional approval.
No, let's,
Well, I think, I'm not an attorney, okay, but I think we're asking for a conditional approval of our plans with the condition that prior to signing the plans, that we have 100% plans approved by everybody on file. I think it may be more than that, but I think that's sort of what it.
We can't approve anything that we haven't seen.
Right.
Agreed. This is only for discussion, I understand
And,
that.
you know, I've been on the board long enough, and in the town long enough, that we have always looked at the full, once the plans are finalized and presented, what we conditionally approve is what's going to be built, not 25% of what may be built. And I'm inclined to stick with that plan. It's worked very well for us. And we've changed our ordinances based on times we have made mistakes and gotten burned, to try to protect the town.
Yeah, this, with all due respect, Mr. Coons, I think this is, it might be stretching it a little bit as to how you might be harmed. Again, the section of the road that we're talking about that has town jurisdiction, and yes, the town will meet with DOT, that's a standard. But the section that we're talking about is the town section. There's not an extensive amount of work there. Again, we're going to come back to you, and you know, this might be a little different than what's happened in the past. It could be. We are not in a great economy right now, all right? So I have to look at projects that I can get permitted within a timely fashion that are not going to bankrupt me, okay? And this, the request that you're making of me for a section of this section of road is a bit of a hardship. And again, we're not asking for final approval. We're asking for final approval in your signature once we get it. But I can't go ahead and authorize another $7,500,000 to do this small section of 100% plans. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. So I guess I'm asking for some relief from the planning board. I'm not saying, Mr. Coons, that that's not the way it's been done. I will never dispute that. I can only come to you with what I have here. And what I'm asking is, as a developer trying to put this project together.
Lynn?
so at some point in time, if we gave you conceptual approval with the 25%, we will be presented with the 100% design and have the opportunity to sign off on whether or not that meets our requirements.
That's correct.
Okay, at this point,
I just have a quick question.
no, yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
still wanted to go through the board to see if there's other people. Go ahead.
Oh, me? All right. So I guess what I'm hung up on is, if we were to agree to what you're asking us, are we saving you from having to spend this, you just said $750,000, whatever the amount may be, for a time, but then you'll spend it in a little, you know, at some point down the road, because eventually you're going to spend that money to get up to 100%?
That's correct. See, we have, this is a two-step process for us. We have DOT approval, which is a lengthy approval, and we have town approval. And the percentages have to match. If we do 25%, the state only requires 25%. Now, the state has a whole team of traffic consultants that reviews this plan. So they require 25%, you require 100%. can't design them both. I can't design 100% here and 25% there. I have to design the whole thing at one time.
Well, I understand that you need to string out a budget and everything like that, but eventually you'll be doing 100% plans across the board for us and for DOT.
Absolutely.
So it's a matter of spending the money this month or next month or 4 months from now, whenever you get to it.
That's right.
Okay.
Because again, this project's not going to start now. It'll start next spring, hopefully. But I think, you know, excuse me if I could just expand on that 1 second. Everything else that we've gone through that has been reviewed by your consultant on the site, walls, slopes, et cetera, all the things that I mentioned, landscaping, Heritage Committee, those are all ready to go. That's why I want to be able to continue this application with the planning board and be able to start to get sign-offs and know that the only thing I need to come back to you for is the 100% plans for traffic.
So what are we holding up? Sorry, last question. What are we holding up by waiting for the 100% plan?
You're holding up probably 6 months of work. And that means I won't be starting until maybe late summer. And I'll just make a decision whether or not I want to start at all.
But
You're not the only project in New Hampshire.
But if you, don't you need the 100% plans before you start work anyway?
I do, but it's a question of when I have to provide them. If I have to go to 100% plans now, I can't come back to the planning board for all the approvals for everything else until sometime in March.
And so otherwise your plan would be to perhaps present those 100% plans in the early spring, but have the approvals now and start work now?
Yeah, no, I won't start any work. But the process is two-phase. I would like to come to the board and have everything else approved on the site, which has been reviewed by your consultant. We've had comments going back and forth. We're almost there. We're down to the little strokes. The only thing we're not at is the 100% plans for your section of road. So I can't submit my full application unless you would agree to give me conditional approval on 25% plans with the understanding we're going to come back to you for approval on 100% plans, and that's when you'll sign the plans.
Is there anyone else on the board with questions?
This is probably for Andre. What's this do to our clock? Now, we have a 65-day clock once we start the process.
Yeah, once the application is accepted.
Okay.
And
then, so let's just say, for example, we go down this road. We approve the plans, conditionally approve the plans, on a 25% plan for the road improvements. Then they finally come in with the 100%, and we find a whole bunch of problems. Does that restart the clock? Are we outside the boundaries of the clock?
Well,
where does that leave us?
well, actually, if you were to conditionally approve the plan, then the clock had stopped. If we have to bring that plan back because there are issues that came up as a result of the 100% plan now being submitted, then, you know, that would have to come back to the board, and some decisions would have to be made whether or not that plan is consistent with the conditionally approved plan, and whether or not those changes can be accommodated without having a detrimental impact on everything else. And also, what I would suggest too, because since there's 5 items, how about if we kind of put this on the shelf and go to the ones that at least I think we can make some headway on. And
Before
I'm sorry.
you got off the traffic, from your conclusion on the traffic improvements, the only improvements to the Route 28 is change the lights, change the sequence on the lights. So that is the.
That's not true.
There is, so far, that's only what I saw on a proposal from the engineer that was to be proposed on 128. So 99.9% of off-site improvements on town road. And they are not just small section, and they are pretty important improvements. Lanes, intersections, changing right-of-way, and so on. So I think,
Respectfully, that's not right.
well,
You know, we're
I saw the plans today, and I
We're
looked at those
changing,
plans.
well, first of all, we didn't submit final plans to you, that's number one. But number two, the DOT has jurisdiction over that section of road. We're changing the loops, we may change the mast arm, we may change the curving. All that's on the DOT domain, it's not yours.
But that's what I'm just saying, the lights, the rest all the way down from that intersection.
200 feet, 175 feet off the intersection is New Hampshire DOT of domain. That's.
We have a curb
We have an
cut all the way to the
we have an
intersection.
indirect access curb cut.
We might disagree, or we might agree to disagree, because, you know, that's not, you know, how Londonderry in town of state New
I'm
Hampshire
sorry,
works.
state of New Hampshire, that's jurisdiction.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I'm hearing this go back and forth, and frankly, I don't have a lot of faith in anything anybody's telling me at this point, but, so if we make a gigantic leap of faith and say that the state has this 200 feet of road, and we come back and find out it doesn't, are you willing to pay for that?
I'm not sure what you're asking to pay for, but we would have we'd have a letter from DOT, and we already have a scoping session already. So the way the process goes, you have a scoping session early on, and that's held in the town offices, the state offices in Concord. Tim Thompson attended that. You have your meeting notes someplace.
And Lee, that's for the traffic
That's
study.
That's for
The
the,
scoping's for the traffic study.
Yeah.
right, that's for the DOT to determine what is their jurisdictional rights.
Yeah,
And they
and I'm
define it.
saying that if that comes back and DOT suggests, as maybe Yana is implying,
Right.
that they don't, so then what are you gonna do, is my question.
We'd shake, within, between now and when we submit the 25% plans to the town, all that'll be determined. So, all those questions come out and they're answered. And we don't proceed with the 25% plans until we have a directive, and the DOT provides that directive. So, to answer your question, am I willing to, I'm not sure what you're asking of me, but during that 25% plan submittal, DOT provides a letter to the town and to us saying that the plans that were submitted are acceptable to DOT, their section. So, so there really isn't, I'm not sure you're asking of me.
Okay, so Andre, you have four other things, but you said three of them you felt that you had a consensus on with the applicant.
Yeah, let me
There's
go
only
through
one
that.
other thing that's
Yeah.
contentious?
There's another, the other item, and also I just want to clarify too, is that I think Michael indicated that this is a conditional use site. Actually, it's a mixed-use site. We rezoned it from the performance overlay zone to a mixed-use commercial district. And within that district, there are conditional use permits with regard to setbacks or parking and things of that sort that the board could take up if it so choose. And but from the standpoint, I just want to make sure that's clear. I said, you know, we have been working with the applicant on various aspects of this plan. Tim Thompson attended the Heritage Commission meeting. Also, obviously, Art Rugg chairs the committee, but Tim was there in support of the plan. I attended the Conservation Commission meeting to speak on behalf of the conditional use permit at the Conservation Commission. And also, I also pledged that I would attend the Zoning Board of Adjustment because there would be a variance needed for the, for the entrance here because of where the right-of-way line exists. And how that, I think it's the median. Yeah.
Exceeds the maximum width
Yeah.
permissible.
Yeah, and that's the width of the mouth of the entrance here. That needs a variance because it goes beyond what the parameters of what the planning board. And I committed to attend that as well to speak on behalf, as I have done with the Harvey Industries and various other groups in town. And therefore, I just want to make sure it's clear that we've been trying to be amenable and helping this plan along. We're just at odds with regard to this because it is contrary to what we have done in the past with every other application over the last decade.
Okay, so I think we're clear on that. So what was
Yeah.
the other contentious?
The other area was with regard to the design standards for the parking lot. And I don't know if you want to.
Not design, what is that? Let's go to the slopes.
Oh, no. She asked about the area, other area contention.
Oh.
Yeah. And that has to do with,
DOT requirements.
If you can read here that the town has cited many requirements from New Hampshire DOT manual on drainage design for the highways. New Hampshire DOT manual says approve guidelines to design New Hampshire highways drainage facilities. We feel that is excessive and costly requirement and do not apply to private sites. The property will be maintained by the owner and not by the town. Again, our regulations refer to many manuals. One of the manuals is a state manual for drainage design. I don't believe at all that it's excessive. This is being applied to all of our site plans, all our roads. We are not imposing from that manual design of cross sections that they will apply to the highways. They are applying only to whatever is suitable for the site plans or for our roads. It's a one-of-one basic drainage manual that all engineers are using here in New Hampshire, and I don't believe this is excessive at all, and I would absolutely strongly recommend not to lessen up that kind of requirement. We are not flooding abutters. We don't have problems with flooding in town when Irene comes. We don't have too many problems with flooding. It works, not by accident, because we're applying correct standards to our drainage designs throughout the town.
Okay, so do we have any comments on this?
Question on that. So when we cite the requirement for the NHDOT manual on drainage, are we saying that it applies to parking lots as well as to the roads that are being proposed?
Yes, the same, you know, if you calculating runoff, it doesn't matter if it's going towards the highway road on a parking lot. I had a conversation this morning, and I think Michael was maybe under the impression that we are requiring some standards that are excessive. No, catch basin has to have H20 loading, pipe has to have the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's on the road or on the parking lot. We don't want that to collapse when trucks will be driving on a parking lot. Pavement has to be manufactured the same way if it's put on a road on a parking lot. We're not asking for excessive thickness, and the curbing is the same as anything else. So that's how it's being designed, and we can take this manual and insert in ours and have our big book, or just refer to it. And that's what we did. We referred to it to several manuals.
So, Mr. DiGiuseppe, your engineers, do they have standards that they design parking lot drainage to?
Yeah, first of all, my engineers have been around for a long time, and they've been doing this for a long time. And we've been building shopping centers for some time, too. It is unusual to have a blanket across-the-board requirement that DOT has requirement. You have to satisfy their requirements. There are a number of different engineering certifications that are acceptable throughout the state for drainage design. One of the things that and not saying that the H20 load factor, we have no problem with. Having reinforced subgrades and parking facilities, we have no problem. That's our standard anyway. But what the town has asked for, one of the regulations in the design manual says that you can't flood a drain line. All our water goes to the back of our property. We have detention basins behind it, all drains into the big wetland behind our property, and we have a DES permit to do so. When you say that you don't allow the flooding of drain lines, that means that you have to change the elevation considerably on the outfall of the drain as it comes out. In every project you find, every private project you find, the drain lines flood. And they flood a little bit, they release, they flood a little bit, they release. That's the way it's designed. It's nothing unusual with that. When you say you won't allow drain lines to flood, that means that you have to change the elevation every step of the way for it to go down. It requires bigger structures, it requires more pipe, it requires more cover. It's a very costly detail. So we've asked for some, I've actually, when we had this conversation this morning, I told him that my engineer will contact the DPW engineer, Janos, this today or tomorrow. I'm going to contact today.
I returned the call, but it was already gone.
Just to talk about a couple of these things. I'm not asking the board to get involved at this point, because I'm not sure what the end results are going to be. But I think that the engineers should talk to each other and find out if there is some portion of the DOT manual that shouldn't be applied against this project without having a blanket one sentence requirement in the regulation, which is really what it says, that they have to satisfy DOT manual.
I think that could be resolved. We refer to the manual, we discuss if it's a tailwater that affects the flow, we discuss, and if they can solve the problem of tailwater, which is, we're talking about flooding. The requirement is just like 101 of engineering, 2 feet per second, because you don't want a clogging in the pipe. But sometimes they put a catch basin in the areas that they don't produce enough flow, to have a 1/3 flowing 2 feet per second. We are not, we see this here as engineers, and that can be, accepted. So this is not, but this is not the blank statement. This is the manual of 101 of engineering that we are applying to it, and we're designing the
Yeah,
plans.
we don't have a problem with this issue. I believe that, and I don't want to,
Okay.
I don't want to take a lot of the board's time. I feel that the items that we talked about today are relatively resigned. I think we have consensus. This one item is really, I'm not an engineer, it's really between my engineer and Mr. Ianios to go through it.
Yeah, and that's
see
what I'd
works.
like to see.
No, I don't think the board needs to
Yeah.
even address this one.
Let's let the data talk as
Yeah.
opposed
I
to
think so.
speculation.
And I respectfully, I wouldn't waste your
Yeah.
time on that. But, the traffic is the one that's holding up our application.
So
And-
the other three that you have on this
I
list,
don't know if you want to go through them, but I think those are resolvable.
I think we're resolvable.
I think the only thing what we want to get from what John was
Consensus.
pointing out, if the road was approved with a 4-to-1 slope, because that's our regulations, we have no problem if they want to change to 3-to-1 and put a guardrail because it's over 15-foot drop, or encroach on the slope easement by creating detention pond, and just for example, like what he's showing, the detention pond would be in a existing slope easement. We have no problem if they will change the slope, put the guardrail, and stabilize the embankment. But we want to get okay from the board, because again, they don't want to proceed with the design. I don't think the board will have, too much objections to that. In the past, they didn't. The board did not have. However, we have to ask the board for permission.
Sure.
Because it was approved with like for example, you see, they're encroaching to the slope easement with a detention pond. If they will continue with the riprap and a guardrail all the way to the entrance, this will be acceptable design to us. But right now, the comments are coming from consultants. They are encroaching over there. That's not what's approved of this road,
Okay.
because they are changing the design from the past. If the board doesn't have a problem with that and permit us to accept this kind of, design, we will do it. So we are working towards that. There's another one, is a retaining wall that has to be designed outside town right-of-way, but again, town right-of-way will be moved. So we don't know yet where the town right-of-way is, because right now, road is being widened, additional lane is being put over there.
Right.
That's our road. So we don't want private structure to hold our public wall and retain our street with a private structure. It
So
has to
is-
be entirely outside the
is
town
that
right-of-way.
another argument for the 100%?
Yes, it is.
This is
Because
this
that's
argument for
still-
100%, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the,
Okay. So at this point, I'd ask the board to come up with a consensus, because we're not moving
not making any
anything,
decisions, 'cause you have
we're
nothing
just coming
before
up with a
you. Yeah.
consensus as to whether or not we would accept his plan, should he bring it in for conditional approval. There is no plan before us right now. So, Maria, you have, an opinion, and we'd love to hear it, and we'll start at that end and just go around the board.
I don't know, it just still sounds like a lot of confusion to me, so I'm just going to keep listening right now.
Okay. Scott?
Well, it sounds like conditional and conceptual are kind of the same thing in this circumstances, is what he's looking for. And if I was a developer, I can understand that I would not want to spend a lot of money to put out there and then find out that it's cost prohibitive, that I can't do the development. But in the same circumstances, I wouldn't want conditional approval, and then we come back to them with all the traffic improvements that need to be made. And then he's already invested this money, and he says it's cost prohibitive. So as a developer, I would want to know what those costs are up front. So I would want to, my feeling is, I would like to see 100% approval first.
Yeah, there's too many outstanding questions for me. I'm not comfortable. On one hand, particularly in these times, we want to make sure that, that we're business-friendly, putting forth our business-friendly approach here in Londonderry and welcoming in new tenants or however. But at the same time, there's too many questions here, and there's too many differing of opinions that frankly, I don't know if there's enough concrete facts that I can base a solid decision on.
Laura, did you have something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. And if I can ask you, Michael, I'm just kind of confused because I've been on your side, and I think a lot of times that I think it's difficult in Londonderry at times. They're not business friendly. I'm just kind of confused. Why do you want the conditional? Because you can reach a certain point, and then and then once you get to that final point, we can still say, this is what you need to do for improvements to the road, and you're still back at where you are now, yet you've invested that time and money. Why wouldn't you want to do that up front? That's what I'm confused about.
The 25% plans that we're talking about are complete in concept. There's not going to be...
It's a conceptual, is all it is.
No, it's not conceptual. This is conceptual. 25% plans are working drawings. So they're a lot more complete than what you have here.
Well,
And all the radiuses, the curb cuts, et cetera, will all be part of it. At 25% plans, I know there's not going to be a lot of deviation from those plans. I've been at this long enough to understand that. So there's no chance that you're going to come back to me after I submit 25% plans and say you need an extra lane. That's all going to be flushed out in the beginning. There's going to be very few changes between 100%, 25%, and 100% plans. The difference of that change is really construction documents. The concept plan, and if there's any confusion regarding this, I want to be very clear. The concept plan, 25% plans, are complete concept plans. They're not conceptual pie-in-the-sky dreams. They are very complete.
so if there's very little deviation from 25% to 100%, why wouldn't you just go to the 100%?
Because it requires, at 25%, we will get some comments. They will make some adjustments before we go to 100%. Again, DOT only requires 25%.
Yeah, but I still don't understand if there's so little deviation.
The deviation is not, again, there's no deviation in concept. There's this extensive amount of drawing that has to go into 100%.
I understand that. I've gone through that myself.
So that gap, that 75% gap, is not changing the concept as much as it's changing doing the details, et cetera, et cetera.
But I think you would know, or your engineers would know, whether the project is manageable and doable and will meet all the requirements of the town, so that you would be willing to make that investment and that risk to go forward.
Yeah, but again, we're talking about, Spence, we're talking about timing here. We're ramped up to get approval on site plan approval. We've been through Stantec's review process. We've received comments. We've answered comments. The vast majority of the site is ready for approval to come before you, or will be in a short period of time.
Right, but you won't get final approval till you meet 100% of the traffic studies.
I should get final approval on everything except traffic. And you're going to say in your vote that concept, well, everything is acceptable with the exception of traffic, which you have to come before us for 100% plans.
See, I think that's maybe with some misunderstanding that the board, that we will not separate site approval from off-site improvements. It comes as a one package. So if you think that you could get the maybe that's was misunderstanding, that you will get approval for site plan and you can start a construction on site plan and you jump this.
No. I'm not starting construction at all. I'm not starting anything.
So I just will follow just what Laura was saying, that what are you saving if you're convinced that your conceptual design will work, and we're agreeing to this conceptual design to finish that. You're not going to be starting anyway till springtime. You're going to have the final plans done. Will be done. You're ready to go.
Because DOT takes 4 months to go through
but
that
with
process.
what we just said, that if DOT will accept, this is the only one. If DOT will accept your conceptual design, and they will submit the letter to us that is that 25% of their plans is acceptable, planning board will. I'm not want to say for planning board, might issue a conditional approval based on that the state is assuring that that's what is submitted to them, they are satisfied. But not on the town side, because we did that in the past, but not on our side. And I see here, whatever was proposed was a minimal improvements to 128, which so far I saw only changing the timing of the lights. The rest
Okay,
is
Janos, I don't want to get back into
Yeah,
the
not
back and
complete.
forth
They're not
between the two of
complete.
you again,
Yeah.
because I think we've heard that. So Lynn, did you, Laura, did you have more to say?
I was just gonna say, I wish I had a bright compromise, but, you know, I trust our professional engineers and planners, and if they're telling us they don't have enough information, I certainly don't have anything to override them on this, so.
Lynn?
I guess I'll be the dissenting opinion. I'm actually comfortable with the conditional approval based on the 25%. And I say that based on the fact that at some point in time before the ground will be broken, we'll have the 100% design for review and approval.
Okay, Dana?
I'm mixed. I'm gonna have to go with 100%.
Okay,
It's
Tom?
worked many years.
Well, if it's accurate that most towns do take 25%, and I didn't hear anything that disputed that, and that there's only 2 or 3 towns that require 100%, I would be in favor of changing the percentage. I think, you know, I think it's important that Londonderry changes its reputation, whether deserved or not, as being difficult to develop, and I think maybe this is part of the way we go.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
We don't hide our regulations, so I'm sure he did his homework before he even came here, and he's 100%.
Chris?
I'm with the dissenters. I mean, the risk factor is all his.
Right.
If he presents 25% plans and we conditionally approve them with the caveat that Giannis has got to sign off on it, John has got to sign off on it, and they don't, then you spend a lot of money without having that agreement.
Right.
So I guess there's 3 of us that can follow that.
Right, I mean, with only 3 people,
Can I make a statement?
let me just,
Before you vote and talk about this, I think this requires other discussion, because if I leave this room and you tell me that you're not gonna grant it, I'm gonna give up on this project. I'll go play someplace else. When I first came to this board, I told the board that either tell me to go ahead and permit this project or tell me to go home. And this board told me to continue. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm fortunate enough that I can just let that go. But I'm gonna leave now. And the board can make a decision whether or not they want this project to go ahead. I can't control the project long enough for you to finish what you're asking me to finish. There's Gene Gagnon is the owner of the property, and I can't go any further. I'm not gonna spend any more money because I can't control the property long enough to get the work done that you're asking me to do. So I thank you for your time, and I'm not being rude by leaving, but if you choose to vote right now and vote against me, we don't have a fight. So you can take that into consideration.
Andre, did you have
And
something you wanted to
Andre,
do?
get back to me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
No, Tom mentioned about a rebuttal to the statement that communities require 100%. And again, you're going to have some communities out there that do not. There's 234 communities in New Hampshire, and a handful of those were presented to the board. And as many as the towns that's been provided, there's other towns that, like Londonderry, want to have that information, because what Londonderry looks at for a site plan are basically construction plans at the end. Once we approve, that's what gets built.
Right.
But I mean,
And also, I mean, with regard to regulations, I mean, Tom, to your point, I mean, if we have a discussion as to, and we had this discussion before when we streamlined we moved the permitting process from the beginning to the end. We had that discussion with regard to, hopefully that will make things easy, and we made some adjustment to our regulations to make it even easier to do. But on the other hand, one of the things that we never lost sight of is accountability. I mean, we still have to be accountable to say to you and the citizens, will this work at the end of the day?
Right.
Will this work?
Mhm.
And we can say, yeah, and our regulations have worked
Right.
with regard to that. Now, as a board, as a community, if we want to lessen our standards, I mean, that's a discussion we all have to have. It's not a staff issue.
Yeah.
if you want to run the town a different way and provide a lesser standard and a lesser percentage for completion for site plans, then we need to have the discussion, so we have the direction to say, all right, we'll arrange our regulations
Did Tom wait,
accordingly.
though, because Chris had something he wanted to say?
With due respect, they've got some towns up on here that are not out in the sticks. I mean, you've got Exeter, you've got Manchester, you've got Salem, you've got Nashua. That these are towns that have got a lot of development going on.
Yes, but
And-
Chris, do you want to have, I'm sorry, see, Tom, I'm doing what I just asked you not to do. Do you want to look like Manchester or Exeter or?
I wouldn't mind looking like
Nashua?
Exeter. Exeter's quite nice, thank you. But the 25%, we're not saying you don't have to meet all the town requirements. We're saying you don't have to provide all of that yet. You're going to have to at some point, or we're not signing the plans.
Chris, so to
It's a
prove
finance
satisfaction
issue
that
for
the
him.
rest
It's
will
a matter
and
for
how
him to
will
be able to go
approved.
finance at this point.
And
That's
then
what
it
it's all
will not
about.
be in front of the board, and the arguments will be in front of in our conference room. No, that's correct, that's not correct. It will be coming back to the board, because the argument is gonna switch from here back to the back room, what we had before. Or that the list of conditions would be that long, coming back to the board, that for waivers, for everything else, because we will not be able to resolve that. I know that it's just pushing the fight to the other room.
Right.
Well, but
That's-
you know, this is no longer academic. You just had a guy that was gonna develop something that was gonna turn essentially vacant land into tax revenue for the town. And Andre, your other title is economic development.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's
So-
why I was at the
Right,
Heritage
so-
Commission, that's why we're at the
and that's a
Conservation Commission and the
consideration.
Zoning Board of Adjustment.
And that's why we gave 3 other issues that we says we will work it out, and no problem with that one. We just want to,
But what you
keep up
haven't
the-
answered for me, what I still don't have an answer from is, by him doing that, how is the town put at risk? Because it seems to me, he's got all the risk. If he decides to go forward and spend $75,000 to $100,000 for engineering, and then 3 months or 6 months later, we say no, or there's something that you require that he can't get, then it's his risk, it's his $100,000. The town is still in the same position, we still have a vacant lot there. And that's when I asked you guys, if we do this, does he have any leverage on us? Does he have any reliance that he relied on us legally, that he could say, well, even though I didn't do everything, I can still force you to it? And the answer was no. So,
the fight will be later on. There was conditionally
but
approved
you
by
know,
our...
frankly, you know,
Financing
let me explain
line
something.
up.
You know, you guys get a salary. The fight here doesn't cost the town anything than you guys doing what you have to do. So what we just saw walk out the door was tax revenue in a developer. And it's not just him, because now it's gonna be that guy, everybody he knows.
Well, Tom, with all due respect, 6 out of the 9 of us decided that
No,
we were
you
going to
did.
let him
No,
walk
I
out the door,
understand.
so I think the conversation's
Moot.
done. You know, we've made the decision that we want the regulations to be held in check, so that's
Yeah,
where we are.
But, and with all due respect, Mary, the fact that you guys voted that way doesn't stop me as a member of the board from explaining my position on
No, it doesn't.
it. Okay,
Not at all.
okay.
I just don't, I
This
don't
is
understand why he wants, I don't see what the benefit is if we give him conditional approval today.
That's what I
And
couldn't.
that was my point, because I honestly think, like, the
Conceptually,
town of
we have
Londonderry
given
is
him
hard
approval.
for independent businesses to do things.
I believe what he's looking
And
at.
it's cost prohibitive. There's a lot of things that get put on me as a business owner, there's a lot of expenses that get put on developing something that I don't think are necessary, but they're in the regulations, so you have to do them. But I don't understand what his point is, because he's gonna spend it now, or he's gonna spend it 5 months from now, and I would rather know what my expenses are gonna be upfront than 5 months from now.
But maybe he would have been building 6 months earlier and the
No,
carry.
he can't. He can't do anything till he gets final approval.
And
Like,
Tom,
this
we're not
is-
holding up his approval by having, he was saying the problem is that it would take 4 months for him to
Well,
get
you know,
DOP
I disagree with that, Mary,
approval.
because the guy just walked out the door.
I know he did. I
Okay.
understand he did. Let's just, Andre, we'll speak to
let's
him and we'll
not
see what
ignore
happens.
reality, Mary. He walked out the door.
Okay.
Okay. Well, you know, he.
Was the issue
no,
financing?
He had an opinion. He said, if this is what you're gonna require here, I'm not gonna build in your town. I
Okay.
can go somewhere else.
May I ask those 6 people who decided that we should stick with the 100%, does that make any difference to you? Do you want to change your vote or change your opinion? Because we're not taking a formal vote. We asked for a consensus. The consensus was 6-3 that we should maintain the 100%. Does that make a difference to you?
Yeah, it makes me very unhappy that he's walking out the door and saying he might not build it. But I still don't know really how I can possibly say, sure, we'll go with 25%. I don't have any information. I'm being told by the people that we are paying in this town, they can't tell us whether it's going to work.
Right.
And I'm supposed to say, well, that's okay. We'll just take it on faith, dude, that that's going to work. I don't know that guy, and I'd love for him to come build in our town. But I think it would be, personally would feel rather irresponsible just saying, well, I don't know, I hope it works, go ahead. And it may be that it's all his risk. And I guess maybe there's some sense in saying, well, if he's willing to assume that risk.
My point is, what's
It
the
just seems like a
town's
very
risk?
strange thing to
What's
ask
the
of me.
town's risk by doing? How is the town harmed by doing?
The town is
Except
harmed by
putting more work
doing
on
this.
these guys.
And the town is harmed by doing this because you're making the process longer when you don't get that approval up front. This portion of the process longer by not getting that approval up front. Because if he goes through that approval, that process, then he's already looked at all of the things that he's going to have to deal with. And we will have been able to say, yes, this is a viable project.
You know, I think you can fairly, and it's not just because of this town, it's because of the economy, but you can look at the agenda for the last 6 months, and it's not been overburdened by development plans coming into this town, okay? So the fact is that, you know, the economy's down, and this is a guy that was gonna develop in this town. And if you wanna sit there and say, hey, let's continue to do business as usual, expect, and let's be clear, this town, rightfully or wrongfully, has a reputation as hostile to developers. You know, you
I agree
can
with that.
say that, you can turn your head, but that, and I'm not saying it's justified, but it doesn't matter. It's their.
Right, it's the perception.
It's the perception. And this is an example of that that's gonna be replayed forever.
And I think that Andre could probably throw, 20 projects.
Just made this guy's job a lot harder.
20 projects, I didn't make it,
No,
consensus of this board.
This guy, your job is now a lot harder.
No, it's difficult because, I live in another town and I watched their planning board and they're the worst town, and I saw a developer red-faced saying this is the worst town to do business in the town. And I also know I've watched and seen and read minutes of other communities where those statements have been made.
For every town.
And right, wrong, or indifferent, whether it's justified or not. And I just know that we as a town, and this is not a staff issue, although we have to administer these regulations. But, I think we try to make strides to try to make it easier, but it's the accountability aspect that we can accept 10% plans if you want. It's just that when you ask us, will it work, I don't know if we'll have enough information to tell you, to look you in the eye and say, yeah, it will.
But then how come it works in other towns?
And
Let's take him on faith that he's right, that there's at least these number of towns, which looks like 20, and he said there was hundreds. Let's take, there's 220 towns in New Hampshire, so let's say 50 towns.
No, I was gonna say, let's clarify. I mean, how many of them have the scope of
Well,
population
then just take the
and
20 on the
demographic,
paper.
that sort of thing?
Just take the 20 in the paper. How come Dover does it? Dover seems to be a fairly conservative town, I would think. Brentwood and
I think it's hard to
Rochester.
compare, Tom, not knowing what those offsite improvements were.
See, that's what, to me, we didn't know what the 25% was. I saw these plans.
But then is it a case of looking at each individual one, or is it just having a policy and not do it?
See, Tom, if I may finish, he's saying that, no, these plans are really not 25%. So we don't know what is 25% because I understood from the letter that he thought that this is sufficient. He doesn't want to do anymore. This is sufficient to do it. But then he's saying, no, he's going to provide more. So this is like, we already have a question to these plans when we thought, if this is 25%, that's not good enough for us to, to make a decision. Like it says, it's so many unknown.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
well,
But what I heard is, we're still getting a chance to review and approve a 100% design package for the road.
Oh, no, not only, yes, you will have to, because obviously you have to sign 100% for plans, but there's plans that they have submitted so far that they are not even 25%. That's what I understood him today, but not what
I didn't
what
hear
we
that.
were coming to this meeting.
Could we revisit this when you have seen 25%? I mean, would it be possible to revisit it when you've actually seen what he claims is 25%, so that
Should it
maybe
come
then
in
you could
with
say, well, this actually might be enough information? Because right now you say you don't have enough information, but he says you don't have the whole plan. Maybe we should look at it when he says you have
That's what
25%.
That's what was half the confusion when he says, I will submit more stuff, I just stop submitting.
Yeah,
But you're claiming that you have this information, and
what's the criteria for DOT's measure of 25%?
Geometry, profile, some cross sections, but not construction details for the inverts and so on and like that.
Yeah, slope lines.
That
So
that
they
would have to be
provide that-
necessary,
they have to provide
because
that for
that's where we need to
25%.
have the effect. But right now, for example, if he's moving and building the road wider, and he's going past to the private property, when now town right-of-way is somewhere in the middle of the road, and then he's building the wall, retaining wall, that is gonna hold that embankment, he has to change that subdivision first, move that line, because we don't even know where is it gonna end up.
all right.
So these are the questions that we had from the review. But I think he didn't want to answer all the stuff. He says, well, you guys are asking for too much. I think that's how I understood that letter.
Okay, so at this point, does anybody feel that they would like to revisit their opinion?
Yes.
Okay,
I'd like to know, when you have 25%, a 25% plan, if you think that's enough to give us at least some sort of a preliminary opinion, that we could give some sort of a preliminary approval. Right now, this is all hypothetical. I guess I just
Yeah.
didn't understand that earlier. If we don't have a 25% plan, and you guys can't give us enough information, could we at least talk about this when you've seen a 25% plan? And then, it seems a little premature to say no if we don't even know if we have a 25% plan.
right, but I think what he was asking was whether or not we would say yes if they came in with a 25% plan.
It depends on whether, if they looked at
Still
the
have to
25%
approve
plan, they felt even remotely confident in telling us, this looks workable. I'm depending on them.
And
What-
they
what-
don't feel
what is your-
comfortable. They don't feel comfortable. They've said clearly, they do not feel comfortable if somebody comes in with 25% of the plan.
But they just said
What it
they
will
thought
be.
it was 25%, and now just tonight they
That's what
learned it's
that
not
we
25%.
We thought that what he was submitting, that he was calling 25%. But 25%, again, of what criteria? How do we establish? We'll have to establish a list of what is 25%, what is essential to have on the plan that we can determine, yes, this is a workable
Well, is there
plan.
any standard in your business as to that? I mean,
Well, that was the question about the DOT standard.
Yeah, and that's what he's referring to, and we can just look if it would be satisfactory to, to look at these, because they all vary.
Depends on the scope of the work, but yeah, again, they're building a new lane out there, they're they're re-signalizing the intersection.
So far, we only heard that he says, no, more improvements on 28.
Yeah, it was the
What
first time.
what we
it
read
was-
over there was just only changing the lights, the sequence of the lights. That's what was
Coming around.
proposed, yeah?
He's coming
If I read
around.
this-
He's-
I was out,
Right.
so I didn't see the plans for, too long.
So, how do you feel?
I don't have enough information.
Okay, and we know how you
I'd
feel.
like, I want Londonderry to be more business friendly.
Yeah, I do too.
I think it would be awesome. I have heard these complaints in the past, and I understand, and I try to look at it in an objective manner, but frankly, don't insult me by coming here and asking me to make a decision based on limited information.
Right.
That's
Well, and I
where
do believe what Rick
stand.
said was true. We don't hide our regulations. And this man is not somebody who didn't do his homework. He's coming in here and telling us, I just found this out at the last minute. I don't find that credible, personally. If he's done business in this town before, if he's a developer that's done business in New Hampshire before, he certainly has looked at our regulations. So at this point, I'd like to move on because we do not have enough people flipping their opinion. And at this point, we would say,
Wait a minute. What do you mean you don't have enough people flip?
we have 5 to 4 who said, well, you said you'd like to see him come in with 25% and get your opinion as to whether or not you believe that's enough. But I think you've already told us that even if he comes in with 25%, it's not enough, you want 100%.
We don't know what his 25% is,
I
yeah.
understand that, but Janos,
Yeah, our regulations are calling for fully designed plans, so we can know that this plan is working.
yeah, because you guys can't have it both ways. You either have to say to us, if he came in with 25%, we would look at them and we would make an opinion on that, or we want 100%.
No, the 25 is up to us. If we tell Janos, hey, we want to accept 25%, make it work, he's got to do it.
No, I understand,
Yeah, it's your
but I'm
regulation,
saying
so, you
he
know.
has to give his opinion, is what I'm asking.
But-
Right, but his opinion is follow the regulations.
Right,
That's his job, too.
right.
But if we changed it, that's his job. He'll have to work with it.
I
But he could
understand that.
also say what the
But is that
what
a problem?
criteria he wants.
Yeah, because the next guy's going to come in and say, I want to give you 10%.
Right. I just think you set a precedent.
You're setting a
Mr.
precedent.
If you don't
That's
mind
what
me
I'm-
saying, the only thing I see, and I'm new to this board, so the only thing I'm seeing happening here is it sounds like if you've always been doing it with 100% with moving forward, and now you want to start considering scaling, 25, 50, 75%, it sounds like it's a whole nother discussion and a whole nother set of rules that the planning board has to come up with from here on forward,
Measurable
And it seems like we're kind of being cornered tonight to make a decision right now when you haven't had that in the past. Not to say that it isn't an idea to, but it just sounds like making a decision right now is where few of us are uncomfortable with if you haven't been doing it that way. Not to say that it shouldn't be revisited in the future, with scaling plans along the way.
And Michael made some good points. This is a different economy than we've had in the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't
Maybe
think
we
you can
should go
change
with
it
the
tonight.
flow, but, that's the board's decision.
Right.
Then why don't you ask these guys what kind of criteria you would like to see for 25%?
25%.
And if they can come up with something that might satisfy them, contact this guy and see if he wants to still see if this is possible. But then when you get your 20, and don't give them any guarantees, but say, hey, when you come back with your plans, we'll take a serious look at it, and the board will look at it. Maybe because this is a policy thing, maybe we'll consider that. And if you feel comfortable with it, then maybe we can go forward and change things.
Or if you have a different percentage, if you feel, this is what we want for 50%, say.
And my understanding is that we're just talking about off-site improvement plans.
Off-site improvements, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Dana?
I suspect that what the developer wants to do is he has to do the quote-unquote 25% plans for DOT. He can leverage off of that and do the off-site for probably the same cost at the same time. Then when he gets the conditional approval, then he's got to do the full build-out plans for the DOT, and he can do the same thing for the off-site. I suspect that's the ultimate thing. I'm not just, based on the limited information we have, I'm not comfortable saying, yeah, we'll go with that, when I haven't seen what he's going to present.
All right.
Now, if the DOT, the 25% for DOT is sufficient for them, I would think that if we have similar plans for our off-site, they should be sufficient to give us a pretty good idea of whether or not it's going to work. Now, if that's the way we want to go, then we should move forward with the discussion and change it, the reg.
What I look at this, say you as a developer or as a town, as an engineer, if just we're to have a discussion about changing the regulations, if it's important to have 100% design, Andre, put the plan, yeah, inside the plan. Why is not important that the driveway, the radius is on the driveway, that the lanes and approach to that side is not designed at the same time? It's as important, that driveway over there and that lane, as the parking lane a little bit 20 feet down on the private side, isn't it? It has to work together. So why the improvement that the town's gonna be stuck, they don't have to be designed, but the one that on his side are designed 100% and they have to work. But the design that the town will be stuck later on maintaining and doing doesn't have to be done. Why would you differentiate that off-site from on your plan? It's a one site, one plan. It has to work together, because if you move that lane, now your wall, retaining wall, has to work. So you say, oh, I will kind of adjust later on, and based on who's, or now I don't like your design, so now we're going to be coming back that no, it couldn't meet that criteria. To me, that's why I'm just looking. You can't separate one hand from the other, from the body. It has to work together. And that's why we only separated state, because state is issuing the permit. They will not do something that we don't like on the state roads. If the town will object that will cause the traffic jams and so on, state will work with us. The same thing what's happening to us. But to see anything else, that site cannot work without this off-site improvement. So I can't comprehend why such a opposition to complete the design that has to work anyway with the site.
Right,
That's what I can understand this.
right.
Neither can I, but, you know.
Because if you have to spend the money for conceptual, and then in 2 months you have to have this final design, if you're convinced it's going to work conceptual, you're spending that, so you save yourself $75,000 of interest of not doing this ahead of time. You still couldn't build, you still couldn't do anything else. You don't even know that the drainage, sewer, anything else will work as the utilities coming down.
Okay. I'd like to move beyond this. I think we're good.
So this is discussion for, I'm sorry, for the future. Can we even separate it?
Okay. So, Andre, you can schedule that for a future meeting, so we can have that conversation. But at this point, I'd like to move to our CIP.
What's our final resolution?
The final resolution
Just so it's out. we
is
say it.
that we are still 5 to, well, 6. Are you still 6? 5?
If I have to come down on one side, I'm going to defer to her.
Okay,
If
so
I
you're
don't have the
still
information,
6
I don't
to
have the
2.
information. No.
Right. Okay.
On capital improvements, I believe everybody's has a copy of the plan. And what I've done here is this identified the projects that were in consideration for the plan for this year. And I know that the CIP had a question with regard to the DPW garage. And I don't know if I can get it. So as far as the priority one, there are no priority one projects this year. As far as priority two, you have the school department SAU building. That was moved out from the original submittal to, from last year's submittal out 1 year, where A&E will take place in 2016 and construction in 2017. The other priority two project was the Pettingill Road project. Obviously that was on last year, and it's been resubmitted for this year. And the CIP committee had asked for some additional information, and that was supplied with regard to the benefits of what we foresee happening in that area, and some of the based on the uses out there and the potential businesses and the employment out there. Some economic impact information was submitted to the committee, and that is slated for FY13. We're still looking to resubmit this year for Tiger funds. Another round of Tiger is up again in October, so we intend to resubmit for that.
Andre,
That was for the roadway.
when you resubmit for those things, do you change any of your application?
Yes. As we have more information, as we get more interest in the area, which we have experienced more interest in the area, those types of issues are added. And obviously, we're working with the owners of the area. If they have some concrete plans, they at least they can feel comfortable with me saying that, boy, yeah, if the road is here, more likely this particular development will take place. Then Obviously, those are the type of things I like to add, you know, because obviously the reviewers of this love to see a bird in hand, you know, love to see something happen as a result of the project. The corridor plan, the Route 28, actually should just say Route 102. I'll correct that because the Route 28 western section was done last year. But this study, the Route 102 corridor, which will take, we'll study the corridor from the Derrytown line to the Hudson Town line, is recommended at a cost of $140,000 based on the quotes that we received last year for that study. Public Works and Engineering Highway Division, the roadway heat rehab project. I know that the initial amount requested was, I believe, $2 million from the highway, and the CIP committee had reduced that to 1.5. The Public Works and Engineering, also the highway garage improvements. The question that they had, at least the CIP committee had for the DPW department, was that I believe last year the project was 110, and now it's at 260. So obviously they just wanted to get some clarification on that increase.
The proposed improvements to the existing highway garage are being implemented in phases, and project cost, overall project cost was $540,000. That was estimated, you know, quite a few years ago. Those improvements were building the salt shed, improving the driveway to the garage, and then putting addition to the garage. And so far, we constructed the salt shed. This spring, we finished the driveway. And now we have to build the addition to the garage. We are using available funds for expendable trust fund instead having a bond. So whatever is available in a trust fund, the town manager can get on the article, then he assigns each year, you know, because he needs not only for the garage improvements, but he needs for the roof on a library or do somewhere else. So. In 2009, it was that time 205, but then was reduced. That article was reduced to 105. I only got $30,000 that time to improvements to the garage, so we didn't do very much. You know, we just waited until the next year. Maybe we'll get more. In 2011 was $110,000 was put into allocated for the garage. That's why it was put 110. Not that the project was scaled down, we were doing in phases. So we were looking that maybe we can put the foundation, put the slab, maybe we can put the shell, and then the next year when we'll get allocation for another, you know, maybe $155,000, we can put inside walls and put the lockers and the rest of the stuff. Where it was put $260,000, that was the total cost. When the previous year, because this is what sources of funding. So sources of funding is expendable maintenance trust fund. That's what's coming. And if you will look in the previous year, it was broken into sub-phases. So when I was explaining to Dave how we want to do it, break the third phase into sub-phases, whatever the money we can get, because we can't go and ask for bond for $1 million or $500,000. So if we will get enough that we can start at least sub-phase that makes sense, we will do that one. And then go next year with more. But that's how, so it's not like the cost, double the cost of the improvements. This was always that cost. And the previous year for 2011 was listed whatever was in the expendable maintenance trust fund. And it was not very much, you know, that time, because 2009 was reduced only to 30,000. So the cost is the same.
And also, I just want to remind the board that this will be, the CIP program will be submitted for a public hearing in October. So if there's any questions between now and then, obviously the public hearing, the board will have an opportunity to ask any questions if you don't have any tonight. traditionally, we've always had a workshop this to go over those projects, so again, this, so the board can be exposed to it, a meeting before, so you're not just seeing it for the first time.
Andre, on the one previous with the $9 million, 1,500,000,
Yes.
didn't we change that because money right now to borrow is cheap?
Correct.
Isn't that why we had the $9 million number there when it was only scheduled for $2 million for the year?
Yeah, you see.
Wasn't there a change where we wanted to borrow more money now while money is cheap? And that's why it's funded for those 6 years out.
Yes.
It's cheap.
Hmm?
Not sure it's that cheap.
Well, that's not for me to decide.
Well,
We couldn't
what was,
refinance any bonds.
What are our bonds at now, do you know, Tom?
It varies, but 3 and 4, and they looked at it and they said it wasn't worth doing.
Actually, I believe it was downgraded to $1 million a year. Oh, yeah, I think it was $1.5 million because at least what was conveyed to us by finance was that, yeah, the money is, for bonding is less expensive. Therefore, we could probably get a better bargain. But actually, it was reduced to $1 million. It was put in as $1.5 million, but the board reduced it to $1 million.
The board or the
The
committee?
CIP committee reduced it to $1 million.
Is the road bond?
A road bond, correct. What's reflected in here is what obviously the DPW department submitted, but the CIP committee did reduce that to $1 million a year.
So did they go out 9 years? Is it still
Well,
9 million?
it's
or
$1
is
million
it-
per year throughout the program, which is 6 years, so.
Okay, so it's only 6 million then?
Or it's in, yes. I believe if you take the $1.5 million per year over 6 years, I think that gives
See,
you,
when they took $1.5 million, then it's 9, but if,
Right.
they reduced for that particular year,
it'd be 6.
then, maybe they will double next year.
Yeah, no, so you have to remember to ask for 2 million, so they reduced to 1.5. So then we have the replacement of the emergency equipment?
Let me see, the fire department is submit for replacement of the emergency equipment that are housed in the ambulances, and at $140,000. They had identified the funding source being the ambulance revenue. I know there's some discussion on the management level with regard to that, but that was what's submitted to the CIP committee. And that was a priority 2 project. The priority 3 project would be the school auditorium. And that was moved out 1 year, or I should say the A&E was moved out to 2018 in construction, which lies outside the program years. The district-wide at $2.6 million, again, that also was moved out 1 year by the school department, starting the A&E starting in 2017, with construction in 2018. Central Station, another priority 3 project, Central Station renovation at $1.8 million. Again, that's slated to be actually that's slated for 2014 A&E and a 2015 construction. So not just fiscal year, but the following fiscal year is when that would start. The GIS update. Again, this is an item that has been submitted over the last couple of years as a capital reserve, as recommended a capital reserve item, meaning that the data is, we seek to update the data every 5 years, and given that the data will, given that that would occur every 5 years, we felt that it's best to put away the money in order to take care of that as such. So at least that's the recommendation to the CIP committee. Priority 3, conservation open space, at $2 million, and I believe, I just want to get my, at $2 million, I believe the CIP committee recommended that that be put in at $500,000 a year over the next 5 years, to equate to a $1 million, or $2 million request. I know that
That would be $2,500,000.
Excuse me?
That'd be $2,500,000.
No, I mean,
4
over the next
years or
4
5
years, I mean,
years?
4 years, I'm sorry, the next 4 years, for $2 million. I know, the 2003, I should say the first year of the program, which I believe is 2013, they're seeking to get a grant from the farmland protection funds in order to offset, or actually not offset, but to supplement the $500,000 that the CIP committee had recommended.
I thought they only get grants if they're gonna buy something specific. I didn't think they just got grants for a general fund.
Yeah. I don't have a response to that. I can make sure that there's somebody there at the public hearing in October to answer that question. But I identified in the request form was that they were going to be submitting for that grant, farmland protection grant.
And I should know the answer to this question because I was on the Open Space Task Force, but is the $2 million consistent with what the Open Space Task Force conclusions were for funding open space?
My understanding, it was. Or it is, I should say.
2.7% of their budget, of the town's budget, that's what they said.
Another Priority 3 project is the Public Works Engineering Recovery Way Drop-Off Center Improvements, Recycling Center Drop-Off of $75,000 for the paving existing Drop-Off Center Recovery Way, and that's slated for 2013. The Priority 3 project also is the Environmental Division South Londonderry Sewer Phase 2 at $2.5 million. It's proposed to be funded through the bond and contribution enterprise fund involved in that? No. All right, so for bond and private contribution. Another Priority 3 project would be an Environmental Division, the Mammoth Road Sewer Replacement portion, $385,000. And that's proposed to be paid through bond, access fees, and private developer contribution. Priority 4 project, Public Works and Engineering Sewer Division, Plaza 28 Sewer Pump Station Replacement at $3,150,000. Again, the proposal is the funding source would be, it has TIF, access fees and bonds.
That was
That was Jack's, it was initially tied to the Jack's Bridge, so that
Correct.
shouldn't reflect TIF anymore because obviously they've decided not to move forward with that. So it'll just
Say
be
what
access
TIF?
fees and bonds. Yeah. And that's slated to begin in FY 18. And the other Priority 4 project would be the Public Works Engineering Sewer Division, Mammoth Road, North Sewer Extension at $749,700, with the funding source to be bonding and access fees. And that would be it for the projects for this year, throughout this program from FY 13 to FY 18.
Could you double-check, or could somebody double-check the open space protection? I went back to the Open Space Task Force report, and the 2.7% is correct, but the report is talking $678,000 a year that equates to, so it doesn't tie out to the 2 million.
Okay.
So as long as we have some accurate numbers there, just verify that, if it should be 2 million, that's fine, but just, verify the number.
Okay.
First vote, they got nothing. The first vote, they got nothing. And then it was increase to the $500,000 a year.
Okay, so at this point, it's just presented to us, and then
Yes,
you bring it forth for a public hearing?
Correct. On October 12th, it will be back before this board for a public hearing for acceptance and recommendation to the town council, school board, and the budget committee.
Are there any other comments?
Just a nitpicking little comment on the school department project priority 2 with the new SAU office. You know, I take it this project description just gets carried forward year after year, but the last sentence says, finally, with the construction of the new police and town hall, parking will be very difficult at best. I think at this point in time, we know if it's difficult or not. So if it is, you know, say it is. If it isn't, take the sentence away.
At times it is.
At times, but
Next Monday
let's make a
night.
positive statement.
Next Monday night, try.
Yeah.
All right, so do I have a motion? Any other business?
Well, just before we adjourn, how are we leaving the Michael DiGiuseppe? Are we hoping that administration will meet or talk with him again, reconvene, and then maybe he'll be here again next month? Is that what we're hoping? And
Well, I mean, I definitely plan on speaking with Mr. Giuseppe again with regard to the comment, but I got to bring forth the board's sentiment with regard to what they're looking to see.
is there a way of, a lot of times we grant approval with a list of conditions that they meet those? Is there a way of maybe, if he can provide more information to the administration as far as the traffic study and drainage and all that, where maybe it is a more lengthy, comprehensive, conditional?
Scott, I think what the staff has told us is that we have conditionally approved other projects, but we've always had 100% off-site improvement plans.
Right.
That's the only, not the only thing, but that's the one thing that we've always had, every single time. Even if we've had other things that have to be met, other conditions that have to be met, that has always been met. So the question is whether or not the board wants to compromise what has always been met.
Right.
Okay, and the conversation we had with you is that if you go back to him and you say what 25% is, and then he submits it and you're comfortable with that, you have to follow the regulations, but you can also say to us, you can say whatever you want to say to us. I mean, so,
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's one way of looking at it, is say that he submits 25%, and what we view as 25% is different from what, and his 25% is actually 75% of what we look for, and we're like, oh, geez, okay, this is what you're looking as 25% as, and maybe that might, might sway a different discussion, but.
right.
I think from my standpoint, that's why he showed up here tonight, because we've been at an impasse
Yeah.
since August.
Yeah.
And we're not seeing eye to eye, and that's why he was asking for things that I don't have the authority to say, yeah, that's hunky-dory, Mike, go for it.
Yeah.
I ain't going out there,
Right.
no way.
It just puts us in a difficult position, because we don't want to be arbitrary with anybody. It's not just this development that we're going to be dealing with.
No,
It's
I
that
realize
we have
that.
potential of Pittengill, Woodmont, and a lot of others where you say,
Well-
all right, well, how about this? How about this standard? And so you're dealing with a myriad of standards, and you're like, and we want to be consistent with this board. And if that standard, after discussion that we had, if that standard is different, and we all agree that, all right, now this is a standard that we want you as staff to apply across the board, then, and that's lower than what we have, then obviously we'll do that. But right now, our standards are such where we don't feel that we can say, yeah, well, you can do that. We'll recommend that. And then another developer said, no, we want to hold you here because.
No, it has to be a
and-
standard.
And then, it will just exacerbate whatever people view Londonderry as. And
Right.
despite the, the comments that is difficult, whatever, a lot of them say, well, at least you're consistent. At least I can go here and say that this is what it's going to be, and not having to change because, you like me and you don't like him.
Right.
Can we just, along those lines, and I have no issues with changing the standard. as long as we fully understand that's what we want to do. And I would like to ask staff to take a look at what the state takes in at their 25%. And look at it closely and see if that's something we can work with. If it will give you the information you need to make the correct recommendations to us. I think that's a reasonable request. Then with that information, then maybe we can make an intelligent decision as to whether or not to go that route. I mean, from the list they provided, there's a lot of towns there. I don't know the full history. I don't know the full story on each of them. But if it's working for them, I don't see a reason why it wouldn't work for us.
Do those towns have requirements, standards?
You know, maybe check with some of these towns and see what they look at. Do they follow what the state looks at?
No, I fully intend on calling some of these, because I'm familiar with some of the people on the list, and quite frankly, I'm just surprised they're on the list, but then again, they could have changed.
So have you ever encountered another developer who's come to you and said, I'll just give 25% to the state, but I'm only gonna, 25% to you too? Or has every other developer said, man, this is a tough rule, but we're gonna stick with it?
Well, this is the first time we've been before here with that request. I mean, we've had a lot of developments, and a lot of discussion with Michael as well, is that, I'm building potentially 100,000 square foot. I said, well, we had a 335,000 square foot facility right off the street that did everything, did everything. And we were there at every step of the way. When they needed a ZBA approval, we were there saying, yes, do it. And when they needed to go to the conscom, we were there saying, yes, this is a good thing.
So I think
but there's a point at which, I can only advocate so much without being arbitrary and capricious and saying, oh, yeah, this is the way to go.
In this project, we were trying to work very hard just to accommodate everything else. And I'm surprised the opposition, because it's not that much to finish that plan to satisfactory to show the offsite improvements, because they will affect the site. That's what to me is like, you want to know, even if you go to the bank, you want to know what's gonna cost for the offsite improvements. How can you separate one from the other? Those improvements are married together. They are not two different things.
Okay, Andre, so you're gonna have a conversation with him and you can get back to us on that conversation. Okay, but in the meantime, we might be called back next week to sign the plans for to vote to sign the plans, if they're complete.
Was there a time on that, the meeting to sign the plans?
yet.
I mean,
Not yet.
had they
Not yet.
proposed anything, so
No.
we don't know when it'll happen. Okay.
When the check
Within the next week or
As in
two.
the past,
Just listen.
Andre will send out an email trying to see if you can
Yeah.
get a quorum.
Yeah, get a quorum together and make sure we post it and so on and so forth, all the procedures.
Okay, and to Mary's comment on Mr. Di Giuseppe as well, is it possible for you to email the results of your conversation with him to us, or do we have to wait till the next meeting?
I think what I can do is I can email it to Mary, and she can do it, I guess, email it to you, so we're not
Having a meeting.
having a meeting.
Yeah, I don't want to have a meeting, but I'd like to know what the outcome is.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chairman?
Motion by Lynn, second by Dana.
Madam
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes affirmative, we're out of here.